The result was positive, and at that exact moment, he was celebrating his daughter's birthday. I stared at those two pink lines, my hands trembling as I held the plastic stick. Through the thin walls of my studio apartment, I could hear my neighbors arguing again. But all I could think about was David, probably cutting a cake right now, singing "Happy Birthday" to Emma, his 16-year-old daughter. The same daughter who had no idea her father was sleeping with a girl just 6 years older than her. But let me start from the beginning. My name is Sophie, and I'm 22 years old. 6 months ago, I was just another college graduate desperately trying to make it in the real world. I had a degree in interior design, but no experience, no connections, and definitely no money. That's how I ended up as an intern at Morrison & Associates, one of the most prestigious architectural firms in the city. The pay was barely enough to cover my tiny studio apartment and ramen noodles for dinner, but I told myself it was temporary. Just a stepping stone to my dream career. I had no idea how drastically my life was about to change. David Morrison was the kind of man who commanded attention the moment he walked into a room. At 46, he had the perfect balance of maturity and vitality that made every woman in the office steal glances when he passed by. Silver streaks in his dark hair, expensive suits that fit him perfectly, and these intense gray eyes that seemed to see right through you. He was the founder's son, divorced for 3 years, and completely focused on his work and his teenage daughter. Or at least, that's what everyone said. I remember the first time he really noticed me. It was a Tuesday morning, and I was struggling with the coffee machine in the break room, already running late for a meeting. "Need some help?" His voice was warm, with just a hint of amusement. I turned around, and there he was, looking impossibly put together in his charcoal suit. "I think this machine hates me," I said, trying to laugh off my embarrassment. He stepped closer, his cologne mixing with the scent of coffee beans. "It's all about the technique," he said, expertly operating the machine. As he handed me the perfect cup of coffee, our fingers brushed for just a second. "Sophie, right? You're working on the Henderson project." The fact that he knew my name sent a flutter through my chest. "Yes, sir. Mr. Morrison." "David," he corrected with a smile. "And your concept designs were impressive. Fresh perspective." Before you continue reading, let me ask you something. Have you ever had a boss who made you feel special? Someone who saw potential in you when no one else did? Write in the comments. I'd love to hear your stories. That small interaction changed everything. Suddenly, David started seeking me out for projects. He'd ask for my input in meetings, compliment my ideas, and slowly, I found myself staying late just hoping to catch a few more minutes of his attention. "You have real talent, Sophie," he told me one evening as we worked alone in his office. The rest of the building was empty, city lights twinkling through the floor-to-ceiling windows. "You see spaces differently than most people." I was reviewing blueprints, but I could feel his eyes on me. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." "I mean it." He moved to stand behind my chair, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his body. "Have you thought about what you want to do after the internship ends?" My heart was racing. Was he offering me a job? I hope to stay in architecture. Maybe work my way up.
Good.
Because I'd like to keep you here. His hand briefly touched my shoulder. "If you're interested." That night, I barely slept. The way he looked at me, the way his voice dropped when he said he wanted to keep me, it felt like more than just professional interest. The next few weeks blurred together. David found more reasons to work with me directly. Coffee meetings turned into lunch meetings. Professional conversations became personal ones. He told me about his divorce, how his ex-wife had left him for her personal trainer, about the challenges of raising a teenage daughter on his own. "Emma's everything to me," he said one afternoon as we sat in a quiet cafe near the office. "But sometimes I wonder if I'm enough. If she needs a mother figure." "You're doing great," I assured him. "She's lucky to have a father who cares so much." He smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "It gets lonely sometimes. The responsibility, the decisions, everything falls on me." I wanted to reach across the table and touch his hand, tell him he didn't have to be alone. But I held back. He was my boss. He was 24 years older than me. It was complicated. But complications have a way of melting away when someone makes you feel like you're the only person in the world. It happened on a Friday night. I was working late again, trying to finish the renderings for Monday's presentation. David appeared in the doorway of the conference room, jacket off, tie loosened. "You're still here," he said softly. "Almost done." I stretched my back, feeling the tension from hunching over drawings all day. "You work too hard." He came into the room, closing the door behind him. "Have you eaten?" I shook my head. "I'll grab something later." "Sophie." He said my name like it was something precious. "You can't keep pushing yourself like this. I just want to do good work. For you. For the company." He moved closer, studying my face in the soft lamplight. "Is that the only reason?" My breath caught. We were standing so close I could see the flecks of blue in his gray eyes. "David." "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his hand coming up to cup my cheek. "Tell me this is crazy, and I'll walk away right now." But I couldn't. Instead, I leaned into his touch, and when he kissed me, it felt like everything I'd been waiting for without knowing it. That kiss changed everything. We tried to keep it professional at work, but the tension was electric. Stolen glances during meetings, brief touches when passing documents, text messages that said more than they should have. Our first real date was at a small Italian restaurant across town, far from anyone who might recognize us. David was nervous, almost shy, so different from his confident office persona. "I haven't done this in a long time," he admitted over wine. "Dating, I mean, since the divorce." "We don't have to call it dating," I said, trying to ease his discomfort. "But that's what this is, isn't it? What we're doing." He reached across the table and took my hand. "Sophie, I need you to know, this isn't just some midlife crisis. You make me feel alive again." Those words went straight to my heart. For the first time in my life, I felt truly wanted, truly seen. We were careful. So careful. He never came to my apartment, and I never went to his house because of Emma. We met at hotels on weekends when she was with her mother. We had picnics in parks outside the city. We existed in this bubble where age and complications didn't matter. David was generous in ways I'd never experienced. He bought me clothes that cost more than I made in a month, took me to restaurants where a single meal was my weekly grocery budget. But more than that, he invested in me professionally. He enrolled me in design courses, introduced me to important clients, made me feel like I had a real future. "You're going to be somebody important in this field," he told me one lazy Sunday afternoon as we lay in bed at the Marriott downtown. "I can see it. Now let me ask you, what's the biggest age gap you've experienced in a relationship? I'm curious about your experiences." Write in the comments below. For 3 months, it was perfect. I was living in a fairy tale where the successful, sophisticated man chose me over everyone else. I felt mature, special, desired. I started imagining a future. Maybe after Emma graduated, we could go public. Maybe we could even get married. I was naive enough to believe it could last forever. The first crack appeared when I suggested meeting Emma. "She thinks I'm too focused on work," David said one evening as we shared Chinese takeout in our usual hotel room. "Maybe if she met you, saw that I have someone special in my life." His face went cold. "Absolutely not. I just thought Sophie, Emma can never know about us. Not until she's older. Much older." "How much older?" He was quiet for a long moment. "I don't know. This is complicated." That word, complicated. I was starting to hate it. The second crack came when his ex-wife started dating someone new. "She's bringing him to Emma's birthday party," David said, stress evident in his voice. "Some guy she met at her yoga class. Emma's confused enough as it is." "Maybe this is good," I suggested carefully. "If your ex is moving on, maybe we could Could what? Start showing up to school events together? PTA meetings?" He ran his hands through his hair. "Sophie, you're 22. People would think I'm having some kind of breakdown." Each conversation like this chipped away at my confidence. But I loved him. Or I thought I did. The way he looked at me, the way he made me feel important and desired, it was intoxicating. The third crack should have broken everything. I was at my apartment, working on a project, when my period was late. At first, I didn't think much of it. Stress could cause delays, right? But one day turned into a week, and fear started creeping in. We'd been careful most of the time. But there was that night at the Four Seasons when he'd forgotten to bring protection, and I'd convinced myself it would be okay. Just once. I bought the pregnancy test on a Tuesday, but I couldn't bring myself to take it. It sat in my bathroom cabinet like a ticking bomb. What would happen if it was positive? Would David be happy? Would he finally commit to a real future together? Or would he run? I finally took the test on Saturday afternoon. Emma's 16th birthday party was that evening, and David had been stressed all week about making it perfect for her. He'd shown me pictures. Emma was beautiful, with his gray eyes and her mother's blonde hair. She looked like the kind of girl who'd have everything handed to her. I knew he wouldn't be able to talk until after the party, so I figured I'd wait until Sunday to tell him the results. But as I stared at those 2 pink lines, I couldn't wait. I needed to hear his voice, needed him to tell me everything would be okay. I called him. Sophie? I can't talk right now, sweetheart. The party's about to start. I could hear laughter and music in the background. David, I need to tell you something important. Can it wait until tomorrow? Emma's friends are arriving, and dash. I'm pregnant. Silence. The background noise seemed to fade away. You're what? Pregnant. I took a test. It's positive. More silence. Then, quietly. Are you sure? The test is pretty clear. I heard him take a deep breath. Okay. We'll figure this out. But Sophie, I can't deal with this right now. Emma's party. I know. I just needed you to know. We'll talk tomorrow. I promise. He hung up, and I sat in my tiny apartment, holding the pregnancy test, feeling more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. Through social media, because yes, I'd been stalking his family's accounts like any girl would, I watched Emma's party unfold in real time. Photos of her beautiful Sweet 16 setup, David smiling as he presented her with car keys, Emma hugging him with pure joy on her face. And I realized something devastating. I would never fit into that picture. I wasn't the kind of woman he could bring home to his daughter. I wasn't the kind of woman he could introduce to his friends or business associates without embarrassment. I was his secret, his midlife crisis, his mistake.
Do you have children? How old are they?
I'd love to hear about your families in the comments. Sometimes I wonder what kind of mother I would have been. When David called me the next morning, I already knew how the conversation would go. Sophie, we need to talk. Can you meet me at the usual place? The usual place. Even now, even with this, we couldn't meet somewhere public. I found him at the small park where we'd had our first picnic, sitting on a bench, looking older than I'd ever seen him. The confident, powerful man I'd fallen for looked broken. How are you feeling? He asked as I sat down.
Scared. Confused.
Hopeful. I added the last word deliberately, watching his face. He closed his eyes. Sophie, this changes everything. It doesn't have to. We could dash. Could what? Get married? Move in together? Introduce you to Emma as her new stepmother? His voice was gentle but firm. You're barely older than she is. 6 years isn't that much. It is when you're talking about being a parent figure. He turned to face me fully. Sophie, yesterday was Emma's birthday. She's 16, dealing with the divorce, trying to figure out her own life. How do I tell her that I'm having a baby with someone who could be her older sister? The reality of it hit me like a physical blow. I'd been so caught up in the romance, the excitement of being with an older, successful man, that I'd never really thought about the practical implications. So, what are you saying? I'm saying this is impossible. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I care about you, Sophie, more than you know, but I can't blow up my daughter's life. Not for this. For this? Is that what our baby is to you? This. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean?
He was quiet for a long time.
Finally. I mean I can't choose you over my daughter.
I'm sorry.
The conversation that followed was a blur of tears, accusations, and devastating realizations. David offered to pay for whatever I decided to do, as if that made everything better. He promised to give me a glowing recommendation for other firms. He even offered me money, a generous severance package to help me get started somewhere new. But what he couldn't offer was himself, his love, his commitment, a future. 3 days later, I resigned from Morrison and Associates. I told everyone I'd received an offer too good to pass up in another city. David shook my hand in front of the whole office, thanked me for my contributions, and wished me well. That handshake was the last time we touched. I moved back home with my parents, took a job at a small firm in my hometown, and tried to rebuild my life. I never told anyone about the pregnancy, not my parents, not my friends, not David. I handled it quietly, alone, just like everything else in our relationship had been. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if the timing had been different. If I'd been 30 instead of 22. If Emma had been grown and independent. If we'd met as equals instead of boss and intern. But mostly, I've learned that some stories don't have happy endings. Sometimes love isn't enough to overcome the practical realities of life. Sometimes the person who makes you feel most alive is the same person who teaches you the hardest lessons about growing up. Before I finish, let me ask you one last question. Have you ever had to make an impossible choice between love and responsibility? Your experiences might help someone else reading this. David still sends me a birthday card every year. No message, just his signature. I think it's his way of remembering what we had, what we lost, and what we both learned about the price of loving someone you can't have. I'm 25 now, working at a firm I love, dating a guy my own age who thinks I'm amazing just as I am. Sometimes I catch myself wondering if David ever thinks about that positive pregnancy test, about the life we might have built together in some alternate universe where age was just a number and love was enough. But mostly, I'm grateful for the lesson. Sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you who you really are and who you want to become, even if it breaks your heart in the process.